This is the Creative Department Podcast, a platform built to discuss creative marketing, branding, advertising, and content for industrial brands and beyond. This is our Behind the Scenes series with host Jono Saye, Creative Director at Site, and Jadon Plett, Director of Production at Site, a creative marketing agency for the industrial sector. On this Behind the Scenes episode, we discuss our work for Glotman Simpson's 60th anniversary video. Glotman Simpson is a Vancouver-based structural engineering firm responsible for some of the city's most definitive high-rises, but their work is now spanning across North America. They're an innovative team leading the way in adopting performance-based design methods to ensure buildings are safer and more resilient, but still able to push the limits of architectural creativity. In this episode, we take you through the background, the brief, the idea, the prep, the making, and the end, right here in the Site C-Can podcast studio. Let's go behind the scenes with Jono and Jadon from the Creative Department.
So this client in particular was Glotman Simpson. I was brought in later, so why don't you give me a bit of insight into how we got connected with Glotman, sort of what was their goal, and then how did we pull this together from the beginning?
Their need for the particular campaign or social kind of campaign that we were doing online for them was essentially celebrating their 60th anniversary. So Glotman came to us looking to, let the local area, the local market, and beyond that they serve that know that they were turning 60 years old.
One thing that I thought was interesting about them is they actually had some decent archive footage. I think it's easy to look 30, 40 years back and be like, why didn't we get this, and this? But they actually seem to have a decent amount. Was that sort of what incited some of the ideas you had when it came to creative, or?
Yeah, so with the client, when they come to us, we obviously kind of do a bit of an audit with them, and that was actually one of the big things, even before getting into a lot of the ideas and kind of the, I guess, what you call insights of the company itself, that this was a company with a rich history, with lots of stuff that came with it that was actually documented physically and also already ingested digitally onto their servers. So it was a really cool opportunity for us to tap into that. And a lot of clients actually, they might have it, but it's very tucked away in a back storage room. Really a heavy lift to pull a lot of that stuff out. So yeah, that was definitely something when we knew that they had a lot of these resources kicking around. It's really a nice privilege to be able to not only tell that story, but have those resources on hand to be able to actually use them. We've got 3 generations of family members in this business, one currently running it, one who had started it, and another who is the son.
Going to
be taking it, yeah. So 3 generations of Glotmans, particularly in this story, and we're like, let's tell that story. It just so happens to have some incredible end results as far as, defining skylines and cities. And a thing that we really thought would be cool is to take those images and instead of just showing them on screen like any particular video that you would do that kind of has a bit of a documentary style to it, like a Ken Burns, where you're just showing photos on screen, which are great. We love them. They're great, but we just thought, what if we could do all this in camera, also kind of create some texture on the subjects, and we have this incredible studio here at Site. So we were really thinking, how do we use the studio in a way that's really interesting but not super complicated, but also just had this kind of projectable element to it that was able to be in camera while also showing people in these scenes, showing the history, showing the future, and using light really to kind of speak to this reflect and project idea.
For people who have seen the video, a prominent piece is this projection screen. Where did that come from for you when you were kind of concepting different ways for us to capture the looking back kind of archive piece of this story?
Obviously, meeting a client, getting to know their story, big insight was they're really looking towards the future from a technological standpoint, but obviously what this whole thing was all about, is reflecting on the past. So we thought this might be a cool way in to lean into this kind of reflections on the past, but also kind of projecting ideas of what the future might be like. Not just like, hey, look at the past 60 years, which of course we wanted to do, but also think of this as something that's projecting into the future. So really hanging our hats on kind of that, I guess, idea to a certain extent, and that's where a lot of this stuff really stemmed from.
And I mean, the exciting thing about this project was this was the first one in our studio. Kind of on the back end, we rushed our building of this studio to make sure that we could get Glotman in at the right time. And
it was quite the push, wasn't it?
It was a push, yeah, definitely. But we built this space to have the blank canvas to be able to turn it any color we want, to be able to light it any way we want. And we thought that this was a really good first shot. at using this space. And so when we were looking at color, it was like, we can do anything, but what serves the story the best? And as you and I were kind of going back and forth, we kind of got to this point where we said, color is actually probably going to distract, and we're going to lose some of the intent behind past versus present versus future by overdoing color. So we ended up going with almost like a darker versus lighter, which I think we kind of found on the day. I think in prep we were sort of like, we think this is going to be the right way to go. Do you remember what happened?
There was a lot of experimentation on the day because we were working with those lights, with a whole new lighting setup. We had a bunch of different. We were using every single light, I believe. You can speak to this.
Yeah.
We had a whole bunch of new lighting toys to play around with. But originally, it was this journey from dark to light.
Right.
As we had started with a cooler lighting thing, we've done a previs with that, and it looked awesome. It was really good. I remember you presenting that, and I was like, this is going to look great. And then we really landed on we're going to do kind of a 50-50 split. It ended up being not as, I guess, overt as we had originally planned. It was a little bit more fluid and a little bit more subtle. But it really worked because the beginning of the video, we knew we wanted to focus on Jeff Glotman and his dad, Martin Glotman, and really kind of use the lighting to focus in on this one object wall where we could project stuff to, but also hang historical things off of. But let's talk about that lighting effect, because I remember with your the iPad, I'm just there noodling around like, that's cool, just turning up the dials. But there was a lot of that was really in camera, so we were playing with that. So tell me about like how that whole thing was working for you.
Yeah, and maybe just to finalize kind of the previs part, I think that's something that people don't realize we have to do. I think a lot of people look at a video and they think, oh, well, they just kind of have it in their head and they just shoot it. We spent lots of time digitally building where our lights were going to go and kind of using this template in this space, knowing we needed lights here, we needed lights here. That doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of time making sure that where we were going to put our lights on the day, when we could brief our crew in and say, here's where we're going to put stuff and here's why. It builds diagrams for you. It shows you exactly an emulation of what it's going to look like. So when we came in on the day, there's obviously a little bit of, there's experimentation that has to happen because a 3D render isn't going to be perfect. Having so many lights up in a grid in particular gives us a full environment to light uniformly. You can mix color palettes and you can kind of create any environment you want.
And actively, too, which was the nice part about it.
Yeah.
There was, and that was the cool thing, is we went in there, we did a lot of practice and prep for it, but also some of that stuff was relatively new, I think probably within like the week leading up to it. So
you have to pivot on the day.
Yeah, we were just kind of experimenting with. There was a lot of actually improv where we were like, let's try some just B-roll once all the interviews were done, and you're throwing in settings and basically pressing one button, and we can do this whole. It was, in a lot of cases it would have been a lot more complicated otherwise, but in that case I was very surprised by how fluid it all was. It was really easy to just play around with a lot without having to worry about this guy over here flipping this switch or pulling this dial.
Yeah, having it all digital, it changes the game in terms of efficiency. Exactly, like I'm bringing lights up and down, we're trying different things, and again, you can do as much previs as you want, but until you're sitting in the room with the people, with the props, you can only do so much prep. So having the ability to just have an iPad that controls every single of, I think we had like 18 lights on the day, to be able to just.
It's very nice to be able to just say, hey, let's try this. And also with clients there, people on camera who are maybe not as comfortable with being in that setting. I think because of how quickly things were moving, how easy it was to do, you get right to the collaborating part where you're just directing people, and everybody is essentially actively doing something in that moment. We managed to stick to the game plan while also being able to divert off a little bit. And then we also did the whole other day where it was just you and I in the studio. And let's talk about the wall for a second, because that was quite the lift.
Yes.
It's a very heavy wall. It really was a necessary thing because Glotman had so many historic elements that were actually like pieces. They had this rebar sign that was from like the 80s or early 90s. It was quite heavy. So we couldn't use a projector screen. We actually had to use a real wall. So we ended up building that
And
wall.
we didn't want a projector, you didn't want like a projector screen that seemed like we just put up a screen. Like we wanted to feel like it was lived in.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like it had just appeared there.
It's a cool thing about working here too is, you're director of productions. I'm creative director, but we're both getting our hands dirty, working with the actual tools. I'm that way though myself. I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to do this. I want to be involved in this process. It also is fun just to like play around with some woodworking tools.
Totally.
But it was a cool experience, and it also gets you kind of like in the zone with what you want to do with it at the end of the day. Lots of layers of paint on that wall.
Lots of layers of paint.
Yeah,
on
probably
that
too
wall.
many.
Yeah.
Trying to make it all seamless. But it all came out great. You were very good at saying it's going to turn out great.
Once you put a projection on it, that seam will be
I
hidden.
really took care of it. But, you know, we painstakingly went over that thing. And it ended up becoming like a very nice looking, simple, clean piece that had a lot of utility to it throughout the entire video.
I was going to say that the other kind of unique shot that we did was the top down. I remember being up on a lift and reaching out with a red Komodo X, you know, $30,000 just like hanging over.
Yes.
Put a lot of stock in my lower back on that one.
Yes, there was another improv moment for you. And, you know, like a lot of this stuff, it's very helpful to be shooting a production with a renovation happening, also not the greatest, but all the contractor tools just kicking around and a lift.
Yeah, the lift
for that particular shot.
The lift was very helpful.
How did it feel being up there, Jadon, with that incredibly expensive camera in hand?
Exhilarating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it fun?
It is fun. I mean, I think, and that's the value of having our own space, right? Like we have the time. You're not renting a studio to do a lot of these things. Having the freedom to be able to come in and design it the way that we want based on the need that the client needs was really game changing. And I think the wall actually really lent itself to, you mentioned earlier, people kind of interacting with it, like seeing when people walk up to that wall. It's not like we had a miniature wall that we just shot on a macro lens. Like this was taller than the people in the room. So having all that shot of the four gentlemen in the silhouette is one of my favorite shots that we've ever done.
It's a great shot.
It's practical.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything to that shot besides I think maybe cleaning up some of the back wall.
Yeah. It's very nice like to have that to have everything in camera sometimes instead of having to do everything in post.
Let's get into post.
So it was a cool process for us because we got to work with a few different people within our team. We did a lot of effects that actually took quite a bit of time.
I wanted to hear your take on the VFX because I think people don't necessarily realize all of the post-production that goes in. It's more than just cut, and a little bit of audio. Like there's a lot that's being augmented or hidden or changed.
There is the tendency to say, don't worry, we'll handle it in post. And that really does help. It makes you focus. But then when you get to that stuff, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a lot of work, and kind of forgot about this part. Now we're dealing with reality. So that's why we had so many hands on it, because there actually was a lot of like, because we were shooting so wide, we had all these kind of elements to it. We have a fantastic infinity wall that goes up super duper high, but in this particular case, it wasn't high enough for the widest shots that we had. So we were adding in a lot, making the studio look like one gigantic infinity white wall, removing little elements here and there. We had light leaks happening, so there was actually quite a bit of touching up on that. You would have seen a lot of it too. There was a lot of like, caught that. Totally. But it really does add to it. It really makes the production feel super polished. When you see something out of the corner of your eye, and you're
there's an extension cord or something.
There's an extension cord or a little piece of the extension cord or a little
your boom operator
on the wall
just dips into the frame for a second.
Little speck here and there. It can take you out of the experience.
Sure.
When I watch that video, I don't feel taken out of the experience, and I know where everything was removed. I would say, as much blood, sweat, and tears went into that process. I think we came out with something. It's You have an appreciation for all those little cleanups you end up doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're like, we're not saving the world here. Do we really need to do this? But yeah, I think we do really need to do this. It makes the production that much better. It makes the story that much more focused on by the viewer. And
that last 5% like is for us, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of that where there's just these little things that there's going to be a 1% that notice. But we still do it because it matters, and we don't want to shortchange ourselves, and we definitely don't want to shortchange the client.
Yeah, that's why we got into this. We want to be proud of our work, and you're also telling someone else's story. We want them to be in our portfolio. We like to have the opportunity to have a compelling story to work with.
Yeah.
That people will look at for 3 minutes and say that was a great story, but the client will look at for years to come and be like, wow, that was a professional video but really personal to me. Like, and for me, and I'm sure for you too, like when you're doing this kind of work, you want to come away proud of it, and you want to, it's part of your story too, and for us, it's like I said, it's a portfolio piece. It's something we're proud of. That's what the portfolio is for. Something to be proud of. You were out here basically every day because you live near the office and the studio, and it's your baby.
It's my baby.
So you were constantly here chipping away at a number of things. But what for you was the most challenging but exciting part of this particular project?
The most challenging but exciting, I mean, the reality of building a studio and basically scraping by to get to production day. Usually you prep a production with all of those pieces beforehand. So, I think it was really validating to be able to get to lighting day and then production day and look around and say, like, we did it. We got to the day that we wanted to get to. Lots of late nights and early mornings to make sure we got there. Again, we've created a blank canvas that we can do anything we want in. And so having Glotman come in, trust us, and being able to sit there and look at what we're capturing in camera and have our CEO, Andrew, looking over my shoulder, and like Andrew gets really excited about video. So hearing him stoked and seeing that we've actually arrived after a year of building was really, really cool.
Yeah, the wow moment for that too. I think you kind of realize that this is actually the real thing. It's pretty cool. I remember him looking over your shoulder and looking at the camera, and him almost being like, "Wow, I can't even believe this is happening. This is awesome."
It was a surreal moment,
and the client was, it was a great experience for all of us to be there that day. Like, they were the first ones to get to be users of the studios themselves, and that was really our first step into this space too. This is the first time we're really pressing record on stuff where this has got to count. And it felt pretty good.
It felt like all of the pieces we needed came together. Anytime we're doing a production in the studio and out in the field for production too, we want the client to remember a good experience. And knowing that we have this space to create that experience, whether we're doing a full-scale production or we're doing a podcast in this new podcast studio.
It's nice.
Oh, thanks. We know that we have the infrastructure to make it a good experience. And that's what we want people to walk out of this building with, saying, I'm really excited about the video that we're working on, but I had a really good day as well. So,
and it's really nice to see everything just kind of come together too, right? From just like the planning side of things too. But the cherry on top, obviously, is like all of this other massive lift that was happening around it. And it all came together pretty much, I would say, perfectly. It was a very successful shoot. And then the rollout of it, obviously, let's talk about that.
To you, what is a campaign?
Yeah, I come from traditional advertising spaces, the traditional advertising world. So campaign has a pretty specific meaning there. You're dealing with print, TV, radio, any form of broadcast, all sorts of supporting elements on top of that too. In this particular case, we're sticking in the digital space, really using and leveraging the client's existing channels. This video resulted in other shorter form videos that we also did shoot separate interviews for in the studio that day, photography, all that good stuff, and then again, like all the design of the template. So it was a whole social calendar and campaign that we had developed for this. And that's really what a campaign is. A lot of moving parts to one message in this case.
I think it was really effective too, because I found for me even a lot of their assets that we had built were showing up in different parts of my social sphere. And I think that's one thing that we're trying to do with more and more clients is educate. One video isn't going to solve the problem. It's more about continuing to put your brand and your story in front of people's screens.
Consistency, phones. Frequency, recency, all those markety words. So that was really what we were going for. We're making a lot of versions of that video, not a lot, a few, and then more kind of solo interview styles, individual storytelling to augment that particular main piece. But again, kicking it off with a big bang, supporting that with a consistent message with other faces from the company. obviously our approach was all about organic storytelling, keeping it personal, putting faces to the names, putting faces to the business, and telling the family story, but telling the other story, which is all the other people involved in the company who care about what they're doing, are super skilled. Again, pushing the envelope, getting innovative, and making an impact on the city, right? That they work in, cities that they work in. Engineers are generally the ones who aren't really getting the spotlight, which is why we really wanted to use this kind of story, this lighting choice that we had made to put them front and center, and they might not have the desire to do that on a day-to-day basis, but when you have these. It's okay to have a humble brag, and that's what we're here to do. Is help tell that story, help be a vehicle for that humble brag, and put the story out there in an interesting way that's tasteful, engaging, and consistent, so that you don't forget that, hey, this is a big day.
Yeah, well, and
big year.
I think props to Glotman as well for allowing us to be quite creative. We do a lot of work in this space, and
they're quite creative themselves,
totally,
as well, right? It just kind of gets hidden behind the veneer of a building, but they did give us a lot of license to be creative.
It seemed like a really cool synchronicity of our creativity and theirs, and giving us the freedom to showcase that, and giving us some permission even to explore some of those creative avenues was something we don't get often.
No.
So.
And I think we took advantage of it in a great way.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that we were given that license to go do it. I always say, and we always say, that we consider this industry to be a blank canvas. It's not as obvious of a place for creative execution, creative storytelling. It's very kind of industrial, but I think that's why it's such a great space to operate in, right? There are these stories out there. There are these creative solutions being made. There are these people, and when you do get those opportunities, it is a very cool thing to be able to, get on the gear and get the lights going and build a set piece and get out of your comfort zone, yourself, the client, and do something that's going to be an interesting story to watch. So, I think that pretty much covers it, doesn't it?
That covers Glotman.
That covers Glotman. There will be many more projects to come, I am sure. So, well, why don't we call that the end, and we can sign off. I've been Jono.
I've been Jadon.
And that's our first episode in the can.
In the can.